Welcome to In-silico Trials Real Impact, the In-silico UK podcast that's revolutionizing the way we think about medical innovation. I'm Professor Alejandro Frangi from the University of Manchester, and I'll be your guide through this fascinating world of in-silico technologies. In each episode, we'll dive into cutting-edge research and groundbreaking news that are shaping the future of medical product development and regulation. From computational modeling to simulated clinical trials, we are exploring how digital approaches are transforming healthcare, making it safer, more efficient, more equitable, and incredibly precise. So, whether you're a researcher, regulator, a member of the public, or a patient representative, or simply curious about the future of medicine, tune in as we unravel the complex world of in-silico methods and their real-world impact. Get ready to discover how computer-simulated trials are leading to very real breakthroughs in patient care. In-silico Trials Real Impact, where algorithms and data are saving lives. Let's begin.
All right, everybody, buckle up. Today we're diving headfirst into the world of in-silico trials.
In-silico trials. Sounds kind of sci-fi, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does. But trust me, this is cutting-edge science, and it has the potential to completely change how we test medical devices.
And potentially, how quickly we see those devices helping actual patients.
Exactly. So imagine this. You're designing a brand new airplane. You wouldn't just slap some wings on it and hope for the best, right? You'd want to test it in every way imaginable before any pilot even steps foot in the cockpit.
Makes sense. Simulations, wind tunnels, the works.
Yeah.
Got to be sure it's airworthy.
Precisely. And that's where in-silico trials come in. It's basically taking that same rigorous testing approach and applying it to medical devices, think pacemakers, stents, even brain implants. But instead of wind tunnels, we're talking about sophisticated computer simulations.
So instead of testing on real people right away, we test on virtual patients in a virtual world.
You got it. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at a research paper published in Nature Communications where they use this very technique in silico trials to test a device designed to treat brain aneurysms.
Brain aneurysms, those are scary.
No kidding. They're basically a weak spot in a blood vessel in the brain that balloons out. And if that balloon bursts...
You're talking about a hemorrhagic stroke, right? Definitely not good.
Not good at all. So how do you even begin to treat something as delicate as an aneurysm tucked away inside the brain?
It's incredibly challenging. You need something that can not only reach the aneurysm, but also treat it without causing further damage. That's where the device in this research comes in, a flow diverter, specifically the pipeline embolization device.
Okay, so what is this flow diverter? Some kind of tiny plumber for your brain?
Pretty much. Imagine a tiny, flexible tube made of a fine mesh. It's inserted into an artery, usually in the leg.
The leg. Seems like a long way from the brain.
It is, but they use these incredibly precise catheters to guide it all the way up to the brain, to the site of the aneurysm. And here's the cool part. Once it's in position, this tube, this flow diverter, expands.
Expands, like one of those sponge dinosaurs you used to drop in water.
You know, kind of. But instead of a T-Rex, it expands to fit the shape of the blood vessel right at the aneurysm. The idea is to redirect blood flow away from the weakened area, sort of like rerouting traffic around a pothole.
So the aneurysm is basically left out of the loop, and that gives it a chance to heal.
Exactly. Now, what makes this research so interesting is that they were able to test this entire process virtually before the device ever gets anywhere near a real brain.
And that's where our in-silico trial comes in. They basically built a virtual reality version of this entire procedure.
And it all starts with data. Tons of it. They used a database of 3D models of real aneurysms, hundreds of them, from a project called Neurassist.
So we're not talking about some generic cookie-cutter brain model here. They're using real patient data to create these virtual aneurysms.
Exactly. Different shapes, sizes, locations. It's all based on real-world cases. And that's what makes these simulations so powerful. They're incredibly realistic.
Okay, so they've got their virtual brains, they've got their virtual flow diverter. What happens next? Do they press play and watch the blood flow?
Pretty much. The final step is running simulations of blood flow to see how the virtual device performs.
So last time we left off with our virtual blood pumping through a virtual brain with the virtual flow diverter doing its thing. But the real question is, did it work? Can a computer simulation really predict what's going to happen in a real human brain?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And the results are pretty amazing. This in-silico trial, with its virtual patients and simulated blood flow, It actually managed to replicate the findings of 3 large clinical trials on flow diverters.
Hold on, back up. Replicated the findings. What does that even mean?
Okay, so the main goal of a flow diverter is to seal off the aneurysm, prevent it from rupturing.
Right, make sure that balloon doesn't pop.
Exactly. So, get this, the virtual trial predicted similar rates of aneurysm closure compared to what researchers actually observed in those 3 large-scale clinical trials with real patients.
Let me get this straight. They basically ran a virtual version of these massive, expensive, years-long clinical trials and got comparable results, just from a computer simulation.
That's the power of in-silico trials. And think about what that means for the future. If these virtual trials can accurately predict how well a treatment will work.
We could be looking at a medical device development superhighway. Faster, cheaper, and potentially even more effective.
Right. Fewer patients stuck in those long trials, less need for costly prototypes. It could really change the game.
Okay, I'm sold on the efficiency factor, but here's where I'm really curious. The researchers didn't just stop at recreating those existing trials, did they?
Nope, they went a step further. They started asking what-if questions, the kind of questions that are nearly impossible to answer in a traditional trial. They started running virtual experiments.
Virtual experiments? Okay, now you're just messing with me.
Not really.
Yeah.
It's like, in a real trial, you're limited by what you can ethically ask patients to do, right? And it's tough to isolate specific factors.
Too many variables, you mean? Like, how do you separate out whether a treatment success is because of the device itself, or, say, because the patient also happens to have high blood pressure?
Exactly. But in a simulation, sky's the limit. You have complete control, which is what they did. For example, they were able to look at how blood pressure affects the effectiveness of these flow diverters. And guess what they found?
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
The simulation suggested that flow diverters might actually be less effective in patients with hypertension.
Really? High blood pressure throws a wrench in the whole thing. That's fascinating.
And it makes sense when you think about it, right? High blood pressure puts more stress on those blood vessels.
So it's like trying to patch a tire while it's still inflated.
Perfect analogy. And here's the thing. High blood pressure is pretty common, so it probably existed in those real-world trials we talked about.
But there was no way to really know for sure how much it was influencing the outcome.
Exactly. Too many variables. But in the virtual world, you can control for that. You can have a group of virtual aneurysms with normal blood pressure, another group with high blood pressure, all treated with the same virtual flow diverter, and see exactly how it plays out.
Mind blown. That level of detail could be huge for personalized medicine.
Absolutely. Imagine knowing ahead of time that a patient's blood pressure might make this treatment less effective. You could adjust the treatment plan, maybe get that blood pressure under control before the procedure.
Like giving the surgeon a heads up. And we're just talking about blood pressure here. What other insights were they able to uncover with these virtual experiments?
Well, remember how we talked about the role of clot formation in aneurysm treatment?
Right. The whole idea is for the flow diverter to encourage the body to form a clot inside the aneurysm, sealing it off naturally. Nature's Band-Aid.
Precisely. But sometimes those clots don't form properly or they can be unstable. That's one of the reasons why this treatment isn't always successful.
So they used the in-silico trials to investigate that.
They did. In fact, they were able to simulate clot formation itself within their virtual aneurysms.
Hold up. They can simulate blood clots now, too. These simulations are getting ridiculously advanced. What did they find?
They found that in some aneurysms, particularly those with complex shapes, the flow diverters weren't always able to completely stop the blood flow. And that residual flow, even a little bit, seemed to be linked to a higher risk of complications, especially with unstable clots.
So they were able to pinpoint a potential reason why these devices sometimes fail, even when everything seems right.
Exactly. And that's the kind of information that can lead to even better devices in the future. If we understand why something fails, we can design around it.
This is incredible. And to think, we're just scratching the surface of what these in-silico trials can do.
Oh, we're just getting started. Blood pressure, clot formation. Yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine the possibilities.
All right, you win. You've officially blown my mind, but don't leave me hanging. What other possibilities are we talking about here? What other doors could this technology open? We'll be back with part 3 of this incredible deep dive, so don't go anywhere. Okay, I am back and ready for more mind-blowing insights. We've covered a lot of ground already. Virtual patients, simulated blood flow, even virtual blood clots. What else is out there in the world of in-silico trials?
Well, up until now, we've been talking about making existing treatments better, right? safer, more effective.
Right, using those simulations to fine-tune what we've already got.
Exactly. But what if we could use this technology to invent completely new treatments, devices we haven't even dreamt up yet?
Okay, now you're talking. New treatments, that's what I like to hear. How would that even work?
Imagine this. A medical device company has a brilliant idea for a revolutionary new flow diverter, something totally different.
Okay.
But traditionally, to get that device approved, they'd have to go through years of testing, clinical trials with real patients. It's a long and expensive process.
I'm guessing that's where our in-silico trials come in. Skip the line, test it virtually first.
Precisely. They could test out dozens of different designs in the virtual world, different shapes, materials, you name it, all before even building a single physical prototype.
So instead of spending years and a fortune just to get to the first stage of testing, they can work out all the kinks virtually, identify potential problems before they even exist in the real world.
Exactly. It's like having a giant virtual sandbox where you can try anything, experiment without limits.
And this doesn't just apply to flow diverters, right? We could be talking about any kind of medical device.
Oh, absolutely. The possibilities are limitless. And here's the other game changer. Personalized medicine.
Okay, we talked about that a little bit before, using simulations to tailor treatments. But how does that work with in-silico trials?
Imagine a future where if you needed a flow diverter, or really any kind of complex medical device, it's not one size fits all anymore.
Okay.
They could actually create a virtual model of you using your specific anatomy, your medical history, everything that makes you unique.
A virtual me. That's both amazing and a little freaky.
It is pretty wild. But think about it. They could use that virtual you to run simulations and figure out the absolute best device and the best approach for your particular case.
So instead of hoping that the standard device will work well enough, they could basically pre-plan your entire surgery, virtually optimizing everything for you.
Exactly. They could anticipate potential problems, fine-tune the device placement, all before making a single incision. It's like giving your surgeon a detailed roadmap.
That is personalized medicine on a whole other level. And again, this could apply to so many different areas of medicine, not just aneurysms.
Absolutely. Imagine custom-designed prosthetic limbs that fit perfectly from day one, or targeted drug delivery systems that zero in on your specific illness with pinpoint accuracy.
Wow. Okay, now I'm really feeling optimistic about the future of medicine.
Me too. In-silico trials have the potential to revolutionize healthcare as we know it. Safer treatments, more effective treatments, and now personalized treatments tailored to the individual.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I've learned so much, and I'm truly excited about the future. So for anyone listening who wants to explore these ideas further, maybe dig into that research paper we keep mentioning, where can they go?
We'll have a link to the Nature Communications paper, along with more information on in-silico trials in the show notes for this episode. You can find those on our website.
Perfect. And be sure to join us next time for another deep dive into the cutting-edge world of science and technology. Until then, thanks for listening.